It was fun. I was on my own. We've been awake since 4 o'clock this morning. Oh my God. 4 o'clock, man. Get him out. We got 4 o'clock. I was look at our faces. I was asleep at Look at my arm. I love Danny.
My name's Roy Jackson. I've been collecting records, CDs for the last 30 to 40 years. The very first single I can remember I bought was the Swinging Blue Jeans, the Hippie Hippie Shake. It's from there that I started collecting them. I don't think it's an obsession as much as what it used to be. I've cut down a bit now because I'm running out of room. And there's 90% of the stuff in here I'll probably never ever play.
Right, panel, over to you. What do you think about what you've just seen and heard?
Well, I kind of have to go back on what I said before, because I think that is not unhealthy, really, to be fair. Obviously, they're about 18, aren't they? If they were about 30 and it was going on about McFly, it would have been a bit weird.
I think I can agree with you what you're saying about the McFly fans, that, you know, that they're just young kids, really. But with that older guy, it becomes a little bit more concerning that perhaps that record collection is dominating his life in a lot of ways, and that can be a bit destructive, I think.
And the fact that he's not using it in any kind of sense of, well, it's an enjoyment, obviously. You can still enjoy things, but he's not using it in a constructive way. It's a sort of obsession because of the collection and to have it.
And something that's been prolonged over like the past 4 decades. That, and you know, it doesn't seem to be getting him anywhere. It doesn't seem to be achieving anything or improving himself by following this interest. He's just building up this massive collection of records, and you know, that might be a little bit of a cause for concern, I think.
Losing out on all that money.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Before we get into that too much, we have Professor Adrian Wells of Manchester Royal Infirmary on his thoughts on this matter.
An obsession is defined as an intrusive thought, and these are thoughts that have special qualities in the sense that they're unwanted by the individual, often distressing and abhorrent. They're often called ego-dystonic, which means they're out of character. So an example would be someone who's very religious having unwanted blasphemous thoughts, or someone, or a young mother, for instance, having thoughts of harming their new infant, their child, even though they wouldn't want to do so. So obsessions are intrusive, abhorrent, unwanted thoughts, images, or urges, and we all have them, so they're quite normal. Around 80 to 90% of people have normal obsessions. Classic example would be being in a crowded place like an assembly hall. You have the urge or feeling that you're going to shout out some kind of obscenity. That would be an obsessional urge. They become a problem when they use up a lot of time and interfere with the person's general level of functioning. So we can then move from a normal obsession to an abnormal obsession, which is very distressing and disabling for the individual. It then becomes a clinical problem.
So guys, what do you think of that? Let's hear your opinions.
I think, as the man said, there's like different levels of obsession, but where does it become an addiction? If it starts interfering with your life, surely then it becomes an addiction. If you have to have it in your life, from wanting it in your life to actually have to having it in your life, that's where it jumps from an obsession to an addiction.
I think one problem from this, from what that guy was saying, that his opinion and his perspective on it was a very clinical, scientific type of perspective, and I don't think that really follows with what most people understand an obsession to be. Whereas, you know, I might understand that a obsession is like, I am obsessed with Britney Spears or something like that. But I will agree with what he's saying, that it's you know, a destructive thought process, it's an abhorrent thought, it's something that you don't want and you don't need in your life. And I think that's where we do need to draw the line, that an addiction and an obsession becomes a problem when it is distracting away from that normal functioning that the guy from MRI described.
Yeah, that's right, definitely, because I think if you go past that line, then you are mentally ill, aren't you, and you're just destroying yourself. But if you are just a McFly fan, I'm sure you'll be all right.
But it's about, you know, where does that line actually lie? That might lie in a completely different place for me than it does for you or the other members of the panel. You know, where do we put the line at being, a problem?
If it starts becoming a problem for other people, yeah, I mean, the personal problem can affect you, but if that starts affecting other people outside of your social group or whatever.
So like if it was to start interfering with your job or your family life or something like that, I think an interest, like a passionate interest, is like a nice addition to what makes a person an interesting individual. But when it starts to interfere with going to work, with your health, your diet, your family life, all things like that, then that I think is where it becomes a true obsession.
Yeah, I think that's the question then. What is a normal obsession? An acceptable one?
Who knows? Who knows?
Do any of you guys have your own obsessions?
Not obsessions, but little things. I collect beer mats.
Now, is that an obsession, do you think? Is that not the beginning of the record man?
I don't know. I don't have many.
We'll see in 40 years if your house is full of beer mats.
That's the thing though, if my house was full of beer mats, then that would be an obsession. But if they're like in a box somewhere and they're not, you know, everywhere for everyone to
And if
see
that
them.
was your primary thought as you were going through the day, where can I get more beer mats? And you can't even go on a night out without having to look for beer mats, then that becomes a problem. But if you've just got a small collection of interesting beer mats you've found in pubs you've been to, then I really can't see that being a problem. No.
I think it's more common to have an addiction and an obsession. Like a lot of people smoke, drink, you know, take drugs and all that. But obsessive thoughts, like when I was younger, I used to like Cristiano Ronaldo, and I think now back on it, I was probably obsessed. I used to think that I would meet him and everything, but now I'm older, I wouldn't think like that, and I think if I did, then it would be a problem.
Great stuff. Well, sadly, we've run out of time. As we've found out today, everyone has different opinions on obsessions and addictions, not to mention whether they're good or a bad thing. I think everyone has some form of vice, whether that's someone who you admire, like a celebrity, or something that just makes you happy. If it makes you happy and isn't hurting anyone, then that must be a good thing. I want to thank all my guests, Ray Godwin and his blue suede shoes. Thank you to Adrian Wells and our public for their opinions, and our lovely panel. Mainly, thanks to all of you for watching. I'll see you at the same time next week.